Hey, future teachers! This video is going to cover briefly classroom expectations, just a little bit of classroom organization and management because our course doesn't focus specifically on that. So we're going to get a drive-by. And we will also talk about the anticipatory set. That's a fancy word for getting your students interested and hooked on what you're about to teach them. Whether you are in my EDUC 1301 8-week or 16-week course, this video will still help you regardless. So both classes, if you look in Blackboard at our course, let's go over here to this left column where we see our Google Doc lesson plans. We're going to click on that. And when you click on that, you're going to come to a screen that looks like this. It has several PDFs at the top, and then everyone's name in the class has a template with a lesson plan template on it. So we're going to first open up our lesson plan example. So if you are doing this with me, open up that with me right now. Here is the example that I have provided for you. I'm going to back up just a little bit for a very quick review of what we've done so far. So last week or previously, depending on what class you're in, the 8-week or the 16-week, we filled in just our cover page of our lesson plan. Yours, of course, does not say example on it, but everything else here, the template is just the same. So you wrote your name. I put my name here on the example. We chose the grade level, and we wrote our grade level there. And you also chose your subject. The subject goes right here. And then we chose our TEKS. And I asked you to choose one of the knowledge and skills. That's the statement with the number in front. And one associated student expectation. That's going to be a statement with a letter in front. So for mine, I chose 7C. And notice I didn't just write 7C. I wrote knowledge and skill, and then I actually copied and pasted that knowledge and skill directly from the TEKS. And then for student expectation, I wrote that too. And I copied and pasted letter C directly from the TEKS. And then we previously talked about how we write our lesson objective. And so here is my sample lesson objective. And you can look at that on your own example and see where we are. This week, we're going to continue into our actual lesson. Now, I do need to share something with you. In a typical lesson plan, you are not going to write your classroom expectations, your rules to follow for your students. More than likely, you will not add that to your lesson plan. So you may be wondering, why in the world is Dr. Price asking us to put this on this lesson plan now? Well, here's the reason. As I mentioned at the top of the video, this is a surveying type of course. We don't go in depth into everything because if we did, this course would be much longer than 8 weeks or 16 weeks. But we do what I call a drive-by. We take each very important topic, and depending on the significance of the topic, we will spend some significant amount of time, but others we just don't have time to go in depth. And classroom organization and classroom expectations is one of those topics where we don't spend an entire unit on it, but I do want you to be mindful of it. And I also want you to connect what you want your students to do in the way of behavioral expectations that is directly related to what kind of classroom you have organized. For example, if you are organizing a classroom that requires interaction among the students, cooperation, cooperative learning, well, you have a set of expectations in your mind that may be different than if you have an activity the students are doing that will require them to be exceptionally quiet and not interacting with each other. So for this lesson, what I'd like for you to think about is, what do I want? What do I expect from my students as it relates to this particular lesson that we are about to do? And there are several things you'll need to consider. So I have left the sample lesson plan, and what I've done is I've gone into a template. This is a template that I have been filling in with just made up names, and I filled in third grade math, and I chose a knowledge and skill and a student expectation for third grade math. What I'd like for you to do if you're watching this video is pause the video for just a minute and find the lesson plan with your name on it in the Google Doc and open that up so that you can follow along with me. Now, in your template, you're going to see exactly what I see here. At the top, it says face-to-face lesson plan, a reminder that we are writing 2 lesson plans simultaneously. And this is one of those things where, COVID has really hit our world very, very hard. Our world as a whole, all the way down to each of us individually, whether it's someone ill in our families or someone has lost a job or something, we have all experienced life turned upside down as a result of this pandemic. And another way that we have been affected by the pandemic is it has forced us to think deeply about how do I teach the same things that I teach face-to-face? How do I teach those same things online? And that's the reason why I have opted to require each of you to not only write this one face-to-face lesson plan, but you're also going to write the exact same objective. Using the exact same objective, you'll be writing an online live instruction lesson plan. So once we work out our expectations here on this template, we're going to scroll on down to the next template that says online live instruction lesson plan, and we will add our classroom expectations here because, as you know, those classroom expectations will be altered a little bit because of the scenario and because of the setting and because of the context. All right, so let's look at what we have here. Classroom expectations include 3 to 5 positively stated, brief classroom expectations here. You would not do this in a real lesson plan. This is probably the 3rd time I'm going to say this, but because we are in a learning classroom and we are learning classroom management skills, place your expectations in this section and remember to remind the students of them when you do your demonstration lesson. And of course, we don't actually do this lesson as a demonstration in this class, but I hope that one day you'll be able to pull out this lesson and at least be able to use the ideas that you came up with during this experience. The next part says write your classroom expectations for face-to-face instruction here. And I have this nice little highlighted section that says in order to complete this part, you need to learn how to do it here. And if you click on this link, it is a live link, you're going to see that it opens up to some instructions. And so once that opens up, click on it again so that you can see it all the way open. And let's read what we are going to write on our lesson plans. You can ignore those dates, October 4th through 9th. Depending on what semester you're in, you can just not pay attention to that right now. But here are our classroom expectations. Consider the following when determining your classroom expectations. The first thing, the age and grade of the students. Consider the subject matter and consider your teaching philosophy. All right, so let's think about what I had in mind for my lesson plan example. And in addition to that, we're going to write 3 to 5 in all, no more. They should be brief and they should be positively stated. So here we are back at the sample lesson plan that I've posted for everyone. And let's think about that. All right, so the age and grade level of my students. In my example, I have 3rd grade students, and this is English language arts. So notice here, 3rd grade, English language arts. So that's the mindset I need to have when I'm thinking about how do I want my students to respond? What do I consider to be appropriate behavior, inappropriate behavior for 3rd grade reading language arts? And notice that I also said, think about your teaching philosophy. Well, my own teaching philosophy is a lot of progressivism. I do like for students to interact with one another. I like for them to interact with me. I like for them to bring their own knowledges to the table. I like for them to know that they have knowledge to share in addition to what I share with them. So this is a cooperative type of situation where I do want my students to be able to talk to one another. So that sets the tone for what kind of expectations I want to lay out for my students. Let's go take a look in my sample at the expectations that I decided for this scenario, third grade reading language arts in a mostly progressivist classroom. So I want 3 to 5 in all. And the reason for that, my friends, is that if you come up with more than 5, not only are your students going to find that difficult to keep up with, but you are too. We keep up, when I say we, I mean teachers, we keep up with a lot of things in our mind at one time. The last thing we need to do is set up a situation where we're going to be inconsistent, unintentionally inconsistent, but inconsistent nonetheless, because our students will catch that right away, So Ms. Price said that you must raise your hands before you speak, but that was rule number 19, and she forgot about that. So when Johnny hollered out, she didn't say anything to him about hollering out, so that must mean we can holler out too. This is what happens when you're inconsistently enforcing your expectations, because students will not pay attention to what you say nearly as much as to what you do. They will see you become inconsistent in enforcing these rules, and that non-verbally sends a message to them that the rules don't mean anything. And so they will constantly walk and live outside of your expectations if you, number one, do not enforce them consistently, and number two, if you have so many rules that it's almost impossible for you to enforce them consistently. So here are my 3 to 5 rules. I've positively stated them. So use partner voices. Use partner voice levels. That is a positively stated, very brief expectations. Now, what do I mean by positively stated? I said use partner voice levels instead of don't talk loudly. That's negatively stated, okay? Share ideas respectfully. That's positively stated. Negatively stated might be something like don't argue. Participate in class activities. How might I say that negatively? Maybe don't be lazy in class. Negatively stated, we want to stay away from those. And the last one, be determined to learn something new. You can think of a way to say that negatively, but the point is you want your expectations to anticipate a positive reaction. And if you give a list of don'ts, think about it for yourself. Give a list of don'ts to anyone, you really start off on a very negative footing. And none of us wants to start off our class with a negative tone. So, brief review for your classroom expectations. Think of the age and grade of your students. Think of the subject matter. Think of your teaching philosophy. That should set the context for the kinds of expectations you want to write. When you're ready to write them, make sure there are no more than 3 to 5, that they are short, brief, and that they are positively stated, rather than beginning with lots of don'ts. We're back at the template now, and you can see that my pop-up instructions are still visible over here on the left. When you're ready, if you would like to erase my expectations there or my directions, you can, but your expectations are going to go here. 3 to 5 expectations are going to go right there. And so if you look at the example I've provided for everyone, this is what your finished product will look like. Your space for the expectations is here, and you will write them in this space right there. Underneath that, you've got materials, and you can go ahead and list the materials that you think you need for your classroom lesson plan. And so we're back at the example lesson plan. And so you'll see that the classroom expectations directions are still here. And underneath that, you can write your 3 to 5 expectations. One last word about your expectations. Notice on the second one, I said share ideas respectfully. It's a good idea to have a conversation with your students at the beginning of the school year about what certain words mean. And respectful is one of those words that I would really have a conversation with my students about. Get their understanding, let them know your understanding of what respectful means, because it's not necessarily a universal understanding among everyone. For example, at Christmas time, when I get with my family, usually if it's not a COVID season, so I should really say in previous years, we would get together and respectful conversation after dinner went something like this. Someone took out the dominoes, somebody took out the cards. It got loud. People are laughing loudly. People are slapping dominoes on the table. It's a rowdy good time. If you would ask everyone afterwards, were we respectful to one another? We would say, yes, that was respectful and a lot of fun. Is that definition of respectful what you expect in your classroom? Maybe your students have a different conception. Maybe in your mind, for classroom respectfulness, it looks like students talking with partner-level voices, students sharing supplies, students remaining on task so that you don't hear much loud laughter or loud talking. That's a conversation that's necessary in a real-life situation because everyone does not have the exact same conception of words such as respectful. So make sure you do that with your students. Now remember, we said we were going to do classroom expectations for our face-to-face lesson plan, and we also had to consider what our expectations need to be for online live instruction. So let's go visit an example of what another class that I taught this semester came up with. Let's go back to our lesson plan template. You have this on your template as well. We are in the section, I need to scroll up a little bit. We are in the section for classroom expectations, and this link, writing classroom expectations and anticipatory set, if you click on that, again, that will lead you to some instructions. Click on those instructions. They will open up for you. We've already seen this portion, but we did not see what we might consider for online live instruction classroom expectations. So here is what we have. Notice that we've changed them just a little bit to make sure our students will still be on task in a way that we expect that they will be on task in a way that we expect. So keep mute on unless directions are given. Keep the camera on your face. Have equipment charged and ready. Stay engaged when we are doing whole group work. Stay engaged when we are doing small group work. That's an example of a set of expectations that you may have for the very same lesson that you are writing your lesson plan for. So keep in mind what things might change. Now, your expectations may not come out exactly like these. You must think about the work that you're doing with your own students before you write your list. Once you have determined your face-to-face classroom expectations and your online live instruction expectations, again, you're going to put your face-to-face here on your face-to-face lesson plan, and then you're going to scroll all the way down to find your online live instruction lesson plan. And you're going to write your expectations for online classroom work in this space here. And again, you can erase what I have here is in the way of instructions and place your expectations there. And that's how you fill in that section of your lesson plan.